The biggest problem with information on growing your chest is that it's associated with the classic flat barbell bench press. While this isn't inherently a bad lift, I think more people are coming to the conclusion that this isn't going to get them a massive chest. There's many factors that come into play with the barbell bench: arm to torso ratio, forearm length, the width of your shoulders, your chest angle, and while the barbell locks your form in for the most part, it can be difficult to find the right technique that'll work for you to build your chest. When I first started lifting, the flat bench was a staple in my training, and I got decently strong at it. I remember repping out 150 while I was weighing 130 pounds. This was with focused technique, with using my chest the best I could, not just moving the weight. So that wasn't my issue. And before I get people who say, well, I wasn't repping out an arbitrary 225, you're right, I wasn't, but I can almost guarantee that my chest growth would not have been that much substantial by adding more weight if I hadn't seen that much already. So I haven't flat benched in well over a year now, and I've been seeing chest gains similar to when I first started lifting, and I've focused on 3 exercises with variations for each of them. The first one I started doing more is incline pressing. I found for me, incline pressing with a barbell gave me much better results than when I was flat. I would also use dumbbells, and that's something you can experiment with to see which feels better, but essentially dumbbells will give you more freedom and let your arms go more where they want to go. To focus on the incline press, I would use a grip with just outside shoulder width, or I would go a thumb length away from the edge of the outer knurling. I would allow the bar to come all the way down to my chest, focusing on keeping my chest engaged while letting it stretch. I would lower the bar with a controlled tempo and push the bar up fast. To make this more challenging, you can pause at the bottom. This can help if you're in a plateau and need to change up the variation. You can also play around with different angles. I try to find the angle that gives me the biggest stretch on my upper pec. The next exercise is the seated cable press. Since I'm limited with my equipment I have in my own gym, I need to come up with variations that could substitute a machine. And if you're in a public gym and they don't have good chest press machines, then pretty much every gym will have cable machines. So for this, I will set up an incline bench in front of a dual cable station. I will set the bench to 1 notch below 90 degrees. The cables I will put at or just below shoulder height. This allows for a more natural pressing pattern because when you press, you start slightly lower from where you end. Similar to chest press machines, you start more lower and you're pressing kind of upward. Again, with this, I allow for a stretch while still keeping my chest and body braced. I think too many people let their muscles relax when they're in the stretch position, which this will just cause you to not lift as heavy. Even though this may seem like a little isolation lift, as some will say, I treat this just as seriously as a power lifter treats their bench. Just because you're using cables, it doesn't mean you go light and it's your easy lift. The third exercise is doing a fly. I traditionally do these with dumbbells, but recently I started doing them with cables. While dumbbells aren't a bad option, you will notice that all of the tension come off of the chest in the top portion of the lift. To avoid this, you can simply cut that portion out of the lift so you are only training the bottom 70%. I also like to do these slightly inclined just to get more focused on the upper chest. For the cables, I will set up the incline bench similarly to the cable press and adjust the cable height to target the chest differently. I tend to like going more neutral at shoulder height. I will keep a bend in my elbow, but keep my arms locked. I will go back as long as I feel good tension on my chest. If you're going back so far where it just feels like it's pulling your shoulder, then that's too far. Another form technique that applies to all 3 of these lifts is to keep your shoulders back and sternum up. If you're letting your shoulders roll forward, then all that tension is just going to transfer to your shoulders. And I like to phase each of these lifts through different rep ranges to build a balanced strength across different lifts. So I like to actually get strong at my flies. I like to get strong using cables. I don't just only train in the lower rep ranges with a barbell or with dumbbells. I will actually try to get strong in everything. And I think that's something that's important, and it's helped me a lot in these past really year of training. That's something I've implemented. So if you've been grinding out the flat bench for some time with underwhelming chest gains, then give yourself permission to experiment and actually train your chest. It's worked for me, and I'm sure it'll work for you. And remember that everyone isn't going to be the same, so keep an open mind when you hear that you must be repping out 225 on the bench to have a big chest.